So first thing I did was I checked his gums. His gums were pale, which was indicative of blood loss. His
Yeah.
stomach was distended a little bit. Tried to get him up on his feet, really couldn't stand. So, long story short, I rushed him over to the vet, which was about 25 minutes from the house. They took him back right away, did an ultrasound, came back and said that he had a mass rupture on his spleen,
Oh,
and
damn.
he was in the process of bleeding out.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Dispatch. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Do us a favor, hit that like, subscribe button. It really helps out our channel. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, so if you can do us a favor, hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you are listening to us on. Also, leave a comment of what you liked about this episode. Without further ado, we have Chris with K9 Tambo on the podcast today. Very excited. He has a great story. Tambo has a great story. It's definitely inspirational. He's gathered quite a following. He's probably a little bit of a movie star, or maybe could be one here soon. Chris, how you doing, brother?
Good, Dom. Thanks for having me on, man. I know we've been trying to link up for a while, man, to get this set up. So I'm glad we can make it happen.
Agreed, man. It's been a long time coming. I'm fine. We even moved you up. I'm like, dude, we got a spot open. Do you want it? Like, I've been dying to get this story out there, dude.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Perfect, brother. So tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what your job is, as much as you can, and then let's roll into Tambo, man. Not saying
Yeah,
you're
without
not saying you're not important because you are, but Tambo, dude, he's a
what?
badass.
Well, that's what I always say. I'm more of Tambo's mouthpiece, so I'm just kind of the figurehead.
Hell yeah.
But anyway, man, I've been in federal law enforcement, going on year 23 right now. Most of those years have been spent in K9, about 17 of them. One of my most recent jobs is I was our K9 commander for about 7 years before, Tambo retired and I moved up into another leadership position. But yeah, I got to retire 3 dogs, man. It was an amazing journey, and K9's been my passion for the majority of the my career that I've been working it.
Nice, man. So you said you've went through 3 K9s. My buddy was a K9 handler down in Pinellas County, and we had a few of our department as well. One question I do have right off the rip, man, is like, how hard is it to kind of like transition from dog to dog to dog?
It's interesting because it makes you a better handler because every dog is different, right? They all
Right.
have, just like humans, we all have our own personalities. My Tambo's a German Shepherd, but my first two were Malinois, and that's completely different. Working those dogs, and every dog is different. My first dog was a Tasmanian Devil, man, on the leash, so he was constantly pulling, full of energy. And then my second dog, she was a all black, a Malinois female. She was more
Gorgeous.
methodical. And then, Tambo's kind of in between, a hybrid of both of them. So, but the more, I always say the more dogs you can get your hands on, the better handler it makes you, because you just kind of learn the different behaviors, and it takes time to adapt to these dogs, and for them to feel you out, and for you to feel them out, and kind of become in sync and get that bond going. But once you get the bond going, man, you're rocking and rolling.
Oh, dude, 100%. And I have a dog, a personal at home dog. He's far from a canine, like a working dog. I'm sure you can see him over my left shoulder here,
Yeah.
just chilling. But I like he becomes part of the family. Is that I'm assuming that's the case for you as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different theories. I know some people, like, with the working dogs, they come home, and they kind of segregate them from the family. There's different ways of doing things, but I've always been one, and I think that's part of the reason I've been able to develop such a great bond with all three of my dogs, is when they come home. I mean, there's an acclimation period when you bring them home initially, but once you get to that point and they come home, they're part of the family, man. I let them be a dog. I mean, just hang out, go in the yard, play with their Kong, just hang out with the other dogs and stuff. And I think that's all part of the bonding period, right? So, and for me, they when it's time for work and I get up in the morning and I'm putting the uniform on, they know it's time to rock and roll, and they switch that light switch on. And then when they're done, they just go back to, it's kind of like us, we go into
Right.
work mode, and then we come home, and we kind of just unwind, and you kind of have two switches there. So it's worked really good with me for all three of my dogs.
Very cool, man. Very cool. So, how was your career with Tambo?
That's an interesting story, Dom, man, because when I came back to the unit as the commander, they weren't going to give me a dog, and I had about 40 teams under me, and it's a lot of administrative work, and they didn't really think it was going to be enough time to work a dog, but that's once you're a handler, you that's a part of you, and I was one that liked to lead from the front, so for the first year I didn't have a dog, and I was bantering back and forth with my boss asking for a dog because we had came up together on the unit, and she kept saying, no, you're not getting a dog. And then finally we had lost a couple of handlers and we were a little short, man. And I went into a meeting one day and I said, hey, can I get a dog? And she's like, okay, you can take a dog. And then I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna get to go out to our vendor and pick out this brand new dog. And then she's like, you got to take Tambo. And I'm like, Tambo. So the story on Tambo was Tambo bounced around from a few different handlers, didn't work out for one reason or another. He was kind of the forgotten dog on the unit. He was known as guarded, aloof, stubborn.
Okay.
um couldn't bond with anybody. And so I'm she's telling me this and I'm thinking, man, Tambo, like, and it's crazy because I've been running the unit for a year and he's probably the dog I interacted with the least. I mean, we would pass each other like two passing ships in the night. I didn't interact with him much, and he was unassigned in the kennel. But then I thought about it, and I said, you know what, man, I'm up for the challenge.
That's
And I
great.
remember the crazy part, Dom, is that first day I go up to get him, right? I walk back to the kennel and I grab the leash and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him. He's looking at me, and I'm looking at this dog that's guarded, aloof, stubborn, labeled all these things. And I said, fuck, I'm looking in a mirror. I'm looking at myself. That's
Right, bro.
me.
Right.
Those are all the same labels that I had in my life coming up. And that was like, man, that was a defining moment because I'm like, shit, maybe this is meant to be.
Right.
Because the and it's crazy how you can have a human and then a dog, but you kind of are labeled the same, right? And Tambo was kind of that underdog, and that's been the motto for me my whole life. I've had to scratch and claw to get ahead and get to where I'm at, and I was never the first pick or first choice for anything, but
Right.
I'm resilient, and I work hard, and I just always had that underdog, and then I'm looking at something similar to me. So it took a while for the bond, man, but once we got there, it was awesome.
Nice, man. So for people who are not like familiar with training dogs or canines, or how is that for you to like build that relationship? Could you like kind of elaborate on that? Like what are some things that you do to kind of build that trust or build that relationship with that canine that's kind of, I guess, quote unquote, like difficult to deal with?
Yeah, so I mean, it's different for each dog. My first dog, Rex, we kind of hit it off immediately, and he was just my shadow. Where Tambo, he had, for one reason or another, he didn't bond with anybody. And so I knew that that wasn't going to be immediate. So it was kind of a more casual approach. I mean, I didn't take him home right away. We started with, small walks, just getting acclimated. He was kind of feeling me out. And, these dogs want to see what they can get away with. And
Right.
so it's just kind of a feeling out process. But, the first time Tambo and I spent some time together away from work. We had an assignment out of town, and I've talked about it in a couple other interviews. And I we got into Texas, and we were in a hotel, and I had his very kennel on the floor, and he was kind of hanging out in the kennel, and I was on the bed, and I kind of fell asleep with my laptop, and then I woke up to this scratching, and he was on the bed like fluffing the covers up, and then we it was this moment we kind of locked eyes, and then he was just like, holy shit, and he leapt up in the air like he was on a trampoline, and then dove off the bed, ran in the kennel, and I'm like, all right, buddy, you can come back, because and I normally wouldn't tell any handler to let the dog get in the bed, but this was
Right.
kind of a different situation. He didn't come back in, but then I fell asleep, and it was crazy because then like an hour later I woke up and he was curled up at the bottom of the bed. So I knew right then and there I was starting to gain his trust, and from there it was kind of just small steps, right? At home he would always lay near me, and then I would just kind of sit on the ground. And over his period of time, he would get closer, and then it would get to the point where he would come and and rest his head on me. And then, so I kind of let it happen on his terms. He was the type of dog that he needed to feel that trust and
Right.
that bond. And then once you get that, man, and you get that from a dog like that, it's one of the most unbreakable bonds you can have. And we had our career kind of just took off from there. I mean, we made an amazing detection team.
Let's go, man. Was it kind of like Step Brothers when you guys like looked at each other like, did we just become best friends?
Right? Exactly. Exactly.
Nice, man. So I know we're not going to deep dive too much into like career wise. Is there any like big like bust that he did that you can talk about? If not, like you want to transition into kind of like the start of Tambo's story.
Yeah, I can't touch too much on the working part, but
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll
we did
understand,
do a
man.
lot of protected a lot of major officials in the United States and events and stuff like that. And Tambo definitely did his part. I mean, I think when it was all said and done, he had over 10,000 detection searches, which
Let's
is kind
go.
of unprecedented. About 500 calls for service. So we did a lot, and that's not just me. That's all the dogs on the unit that I worked on. They're kind of behind the scenes. They're kind of one of the most hardest working teams that probably people don't hear about, but they do an amazing job.
Yeah, man, that's a lot, dude. Like you said
Yeah.
500, 5,000 calls for service?
500 calls for service and about 10,000 detection searches. And
Dude.
so when we pick our dogs, we search a lot of volume of stuff. So we got to find the dogs that have that drive in the hunt, that nonstop. And so we're kind of particular with when we're picking the dogs out, that the type of dog and personality that we're looking for, and they got to be really environmentally friendly, especially, going into any type of search and environment. We don't want the dog to be rattled. So we try to put them in every type of environment possible. So if we're going for some type of search, then the dog is going to be unfazed regardless of where they're at.
Right. So now for like canine health in general, right? So that's a lot of calls for service. That's a lot of detections. I mean, so he's been working, he was grinding, you guys were grinding for sure. Now, how does
Yeah.
that like in your mind of like the health of the canine? Because that's what jumping in and out of an SUV, I'm assuming. Now, how does that
Yeah.
take the toll on the canine's body? And like what are some things that you can help to like mitigate some of those issues that occur in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dom, and it's something I've talked about before. And one of the biggest correlations, I relate the working dogs to professional athletes, right?
Right.
If you look at like NFL players, is they put that grind. They're these prime athletes. They put this grind on their body throughout a 10-year career or something like that, and then they retire, and then the body starts breaking down. So initially, what we went through a lot of like classes with like orthopedic specialists and stuff like that. We focused a lot on the health, and what they started correlating these dogs to athletes and saying, if you look at like an NFL player, what do you see them doing out on the field before the game? They're all stretching, they're all getting their routine in, they're getting prepared, right? It's no different for these dogs. And what we realize is, before we're going out and searching volume, we got to warm these dogs up, right? We got to stretch them out. We got to do some certain exercises to get them prepared. It's kind of like, Dom, if you or I like walked outside right now and did a 100-yard sprint, more than likely we probably tear a hamstring, right?
Right.
Without
Oh yeah.
stretching,
Oh yeah. 100%.
right? So if you think about it with these dogs, if they're sitting in the car, right, and then you say, okay, we're going to go out and sweep 100 vehicles right now. There's a good chance that they could strain something, they could pull something. So it's no different. So getting that mindset to prepare these dogs prior to these volume of searches, just like an athlete, is what prevents injuries and stuff like that. So we're real big on that, and that's what I think's helped longevity on these dogs' career. But you're on point when you say when they work that much volume at the end of their career, they are going to have some health issues. There's going to be wear and tear on the body, just like any athlete
Right.
after a hard career.
Oh, dude, 1,000%. I mean, you look at Jerome Bettis from the Steelers, like that dude. You talk about like a hardcore nose to the grindstone running back. That's it, man. And him after his career, I heard he had to like slide down the stairs on his butt because his knees were just shot.
Yeah, yeah, you hear it all the time, or you see like in the NFL, the offensive linemen that are playing at like 350 pounds, and then when they retire, they're unrecognizable because they have to drop down in the weight, and they go
Right.
down to like 200 pounds just to, with their playing weight's a little bit different, but you don't want to be carrying that weight, not being an athlete anymore. So you see a lot of them, that's when they drop down in weight just to keep that wear and tear off the knees and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was Tyler Lewan from the Titans. He has Busting with the Boys. Like, he's a completely different person, physically than when he was a star tackle. Yeah, man, that's crazy. So let's kind of start diving into Tambo's story, man. So he had a fucking great career, was a badass. You guys killed it. Now, how was, life for him transitioning out of day to day work? I'm sure it was tough because dogs love to work. You can watch any video of a canine handler, they want to be there.
Yeah, and that's what I always say is the hard part with the working dogs is as they retire and the body starts breaking down, the mind is still just as sharp, and that's the hard part for these dogs because that will to work never goes away, right? So Tambo, he had it rough, man. Like he was creeping up on 9 years old, and we were going to retire him soon anyway, and he was jumping in for a search in a tractor trailer, misjudged the surge, hit his right front leg on the rim of the tractor trailer, tore a ligament, and took him to the orthopedic, and they said, look, we could do surgery, but I think he can recover without the surgery, but he's probably not going to be able to work the way he did before. So with his age being 9, we decided to retire him. So I got him into rehab. He made a full recovery from that, but it was good timing with the retirement because my son was being born,
Yeah.
and so I had to take some time off of work anyway. And I didn't know how Tambo was going to be with my son at first because I had heard rumors from, the handler he was with before that he wasn't good with kids, but that could have been furthest from the truth. And I think, Tambo saw my son as like an extension of me.
Yeah.
So it kind of helped because all of a sudden he didn't leave my son's side. When my son cried, he would bark and kind of, let me know, said, hey, Mackie's crying in here. You need to get in here, and just never let us left his side. So he really kind of found life in doing that. But I will say, once I started going back to work, he still tried to come to work with me. And
Yeah.
the hard part is, he's been retired since November of 2022, and until this day, he still tries to come to work with me. That that will never leaves, and every day it's like, sorry, buddy, you're not coming. So that was an adjustment for him, and then he got kind of found that niche with my son, and then, dude, there was this fucking squirrel in the yard, and this is a stupid story, but it's crazy that tormented the fuck out of him. He would run up on the windowsill, and Tambo would bark, and then
Yeah.
Tambo would go in the yard, and he would chase him, and I talk it was like a modern day fucking Tom and Jerry thing, right? And that was just his thing. So one day, I named this fucking squirrel George too, right? So George is out there, and Tambo goes out, sees George, and leaps off the steps, which he normally doesn't do. In mid stride, I see him pull up lame. I knew something was wrong, and he came back real. His mobility was pretty much shot, and then long story short, I got him into the orthopedic. He not only tore one ACL, he tore both.
Of
So he
course.
had a double ACL tear. So so that's when kind of Project K9 here kind of came into the picture. I had met their founder, Jason Johnson, about 2 years prior at a HITS conference in DC, and him and I became friends. For people that aren't familiar with Project K9 here, they're a national nonprofit that provides medical care for military and police working dogs in retirement that have significant needs or health issues. So Jason and I stayed in contact, and after I talked to the orthopedic, the surgery for both ACLs was going to be 14,000. So I called Jay up, and Jay got Tambo right into the program, and they funded the first surgery for 7 grand, and Tambo made a full recovery from that, which was amazing. And the good thing about it, Dom, is that he didn't need the other surgery because his stability on his leg was pretty good. But Project K9 here definitely stepped up at a time needed, and I would have been able to afford it. But I think about a lot of handlers of that may not have been able to afford that surgery, and I feel like what a lot of people don't know is when these dogs retire, the burden of cost falls on the handler. There's no more funding from the agency. There's no pension. There's no health care.
Right.
So, and that's when the dogs need you most. So, I think about a lot of handlers that may not have been able to afford it, and I don't think handlers should ever have to make the decision, health decisions with their dogs, that have served the country, based on finances. So, Project K9 here was a big boost for stepping in at that time with the surgery.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And I feel like that should be a burden. There shouldn't be a burden that the canine handlers. I mean, if they served that department or whatever that community, I feel like they should. Their health benefits should transition over to their retirement life. I mean, they dedicated their lives to service for a greater good. Like we should be covering their medical costs for the rest of their life because that's. I mean, not everyone has $7,000 just laying around to go get a fucking ACL surgery for a dog. You know?
No, fuck no. And it's not. And I will say this: it's not any fault to any of the departments. And I know a lot of them, if they could fund it, that they would. And I
Right.
know, my entity would in a heartbeat if they could. It's just kind of the way that it's set up. And one of the big things that I've been using this platform for too, is to get that word out for the need for these dogs to have care, in retirement. I know one of the things that Jason is working on is the K9 Hero Act, where I've been down to the Capitol building with him a lot, lobbying with congressmen, trying to get legislation passed to get stuff in place for these dogs to get the care that they need in retirement. So that's the end goal that we're shooting for, because think and we'll get into Tambo's other diagnosis in a minute, but cost came in even more then, with stuff, and without Project K9 Hero, the care for them wouldn't have been possible.
Right. So shout out to them. Shout out to Jason. Like that's a fantastic organization. It's a need that he's filling. And I'm sure I wish he probably wish he could do more, but
Yeah.
the funds are limited. So do you know the website that they can find him on or Instagram if people want to donate?
Yep, they're on all social media platforms under Project K9 Hero. There's links on my Instagram page, and then there you can go to their website at projectk9hero.org, and on there it's great because they're not only helping Tambo, but they've helped so many other heroes that have been shot in the line of duty, stabbed, hitting their cruiser, other dogs that have cancer, and Jason does it right. He takes in about 300. He's taken in about 352 dogs, and he tries to take in the dogs that really need the help, so he can make sure he has the funds available with whatever cost they need, that they can cover it.
Man, that sounds like a fucking fantastic organization, dude. I mean, we need more of
Yeah,
those, brother.
yeah, and one of the other cool things he does, Dom, is like for the dogs that have been overseas or been in some traumatic incidents that have like some PTSD, that now have behavioral issues, and they can't get adopted out, or the handler couldn't take them. Jason has a sanctuary out in Tennessee, where he rehabilitates these dogs and then is able to get them adopted back out to families that are suited to handle them.
Let's go, man. That's what it's about, though, man. Because it's like you guys develop that. Really, they become a part of your family. Like that's like
Yeah,
another child for you. And then too, it's like he developed that relationship with your son, which he's watching him now, right? So
yeah.
they're like inseparable. Like it's that's a part of your family. So you don't want to see them suffer and go through everything that Tambo has gone through is and continues to do so.
Yeah, and I always I call Tambo, I've said it in other interviews, he's kind of been my security blanket, right? Because you spend more time with these dogs than any member of your family, your children. You're driving to work with them. There's something to be said when you get up every day and you get in your car, you put the uniform on, you're not in it alone. You're in that with your partner.
Right.
And and there's something to be said about that. And even when you're going through like the hard parts of life, Dom, like there's trials and tribulations, and if somebody's going through a divorce or a death in the family or a sick child, that dog is the constant present, right? That
Yeah.
silent presence that gives you that security and makes you feel like you're not alone. And that's why, now it's so important for me to be there for Tambo, for everything he's done for me and been by my side. It's now time for me to step up for him.
Yeah, man. Because like when you had a bad day and you're in a shit mood, what's the first person or first thing that comes up to you when you walk in through that door? It's your dog.
Yeah. Yep, unquestioned loyalty, and it doesn't matter. They, there's no judgment. They're always happy to see you, and just that presence. And I'm a big person that's on energy, and just having their energy presence with you just gives you a calm, and makes you feel like you're not doing this alone, even if you feel like everyone else has turned their back on you at some point, or
Right.
you feel alone. That it's that presence and that bond that keeps you going.
Yeah, man. Energy's definitely a thing. I know it's probably more on the crunchy end. I like then call me fucking crunchy. I don't give a shit because you pick up on people's energy. You really
Oh
do,
yeah.
and then that can affect how you interact with that person.
Yeah, and I've always said, and when I first started as a handler, I always tell the story is that we were doing our yearly certifications, and detection certifications aren't set up to make anybody fail. But I was dating a girl at the time, and I was going through a bad breakup, and we had our certifications, and I failed them miserably. And the reason is my head wasn't in it, and these dogs are so in sync with your energy. So if your mindset isn't right, that dog feeds off of everything and all your energy. So it caused the dog to have all kinds of issues. And then, I remember my boss at the time, and you end up being my mentor, just telling me that everything you do goes down the end of that lead. So whatever personal issues you're having, especially when you're working a dog, you got to put them aside when you come to work, because the dog's feeding off of that. Everything you do, that dog is feeding off of. So if you don't have that right attitude or the right mentality, the dog is going to feed off that, and the dog's not going to work the way you want him to.
No, agreed, man. So you touched on a mentorship, and like I think mentorship is freaking phenomenal, and I feel like a lot of departments should have mentorship. Like, how was mentorship for you in your law enforcement career? Sorry, to get a little sidetrack. I just had to answer.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up, because, like, for me, I grew up without a father. My dad left when I was early, so I really didn't have any guidance growing up, or direction, until I really kind of found the law enforcement field, and knew that I'm a type of guy is I need to be passionate about something to really feel it. And I found this career, and it's definitely what I wanted to do, and I felt like I finally had a direction. So my first boss on K9, his name was Bernie, and he kind of took me under his wing, and he was like one of the first people to kind of believe in me, and he let me make mistakes and let me learn from them. Got in my ass when I fucked up, and those were things that were missing in my life. I was in my young 20s, and it's crazy because he was my boss for over different parts of career steps that I took for like probably 15 of those years. And he was always that fallback. And ironically, he's the one that picked me to come back to K9 as the K9 commander. And it was an honor for me to go back and go into his footsteps. And the hard part is that shortly after he picked me, we were talking at work, and I was telling him about all the stuff I wanted to do with K9. And man, he went home that night, and went to take the trash out, and collapsed and died in his driveway.
Oh
And
god.
I got a call that night from one of my other coworkers, saying that he passed away, and I was in shock, and it really messed me up for a while, because I was trying to say, man, I just saw him at work the other day. I was just looking at talking to him, and now he's not here anymore. This mentor, this father figure that I had is gone, and I kind of felt like I didn't have a direction. And that was kind of when I knew I really wanted to take another dog, because I always had that dog with me to kind of get me through those hard times. And so that was a big part of the journey. And we'll get into the book that I'm writing in a little bit, but that section and that whole story is like a big part of the book.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So growing up without a father and then having your father figure pass away, how was that for you? And then how'd you handle it? I know I'm getting a little off topic, but I mean, I feel like this is like,
No, man, I tell you what, like, my dad left when I was a baby, and I remember my mom telling me that, I got real sick in the hospital, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I think years later, it was the loss of my dad leaving, right? Because for a
yeah,
boy and a guy growing up, your dad's your first best friend, right? And
right,
I didn't have that. So then I find and I put this all together later because my mom kind of bridged the gap, and then I was like, oh my God, you're right.
right,
Because after my mentor had passed away, man, I started getting really sick, and I was having all these pains. I was having chest pains. I was getting all these checks at the hospital, and there was nothing wrong with me. And then my mom was like, "This is almost like what you went through when you're a baby, when your dad left." And I think that was that connection of that father figure. It was almost happening all over again, and it really was kind of hit me because, like, again, I think we all kind of need that direction from that male mentor in our lives at some point. And again, he was the one that kind of believed in me when nobody else did. He was a great leader, and that's part of the reason that I aspire to get better and be the leader that I am, is to honor him. And he always gave me great advice. He said, Chris, when you focus on the success of others, your own success is always going to take care of itself, whether you
right,
want it to or not. And
dude.
that's been
Yes,
my motto, man, is like I get more pleasure out of helping other people
yes,
and seeing them succeed. And I remember him telling me, because he made it all the way up to our deputy chief, and he's like, Christ, he said, I never asked for any of this. I just helped you guys out. And he said, they kept fucking promoting me. But that's that's a good leader, man. And
yes,
and also when you let people make mistakes, and you can show humility too as a leader, and show your humbleness, because I've always been the guys, and I ain't got all the fucking answers,
right,
right? But I know how to get them, and I don't blow smoke up people's ass when I don't have the answers to things.
yes.
And I think people respect that more as a person, rather than the guys that put all that bravado out and think they have the answers to everything. And I want people to follow me for the person I am, and not the title, right? And I always use the thing is that there's people you follow into the depths of hell, and there's other people you wouldn't fucking follow into a Starbucks, right?
Brother, you're not
So
lying.
yeah, so I that's what I strive to do, to be the leader that he was, and be a good mentor, and kind of pay that forward. And now, now that I'm a father, because I had my son late in life, is I want to leave a good legacy for him, and I want to show him that everything is possible if you work toward it, right? And it doesn't matter what other people label you as, or try to tell you. If you let other people label you or tell you what you're capable of, you're not going to go anywhere. And I'll tell you that the biggest freeing thing for me, Dom, is when I stopped caring what the fuck anybody thought about me, right?
Yes.
And the minute you do that, it's a freeing feeling, and your success is going to skyrocket,
Yeah, man,
because
because
other people is what holds us back.
1,000%, because we're always worried about what other people think. Who
Yep.
fucking cares what other people think? And the thing too is, it's like, you don't let your ego get involved, because your ego, or you're embarrassed, or you're fearful of something. Fucking put it out there, because you know what? Everyone fucking struggles in life, and if they say they don't, they're fucking full of shit. And
Yep.
anyone who's listening, who is a younger individual who's looking to get into law enforcement, listen to just what Chris said about leadership, about being a good person, about helping, because you keep putting good in this world, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get good back. It's karma. It's what it is. I had another question for you about being a father. So you became a father later in life, right?
Yep.
How was that for you growing up without a father?
Man, it was hard, because you kind of feel like, I remember growing up, and all my friends' dads were taking them to sporting events. And I was a big into baseball, and it was my mom or my grandmother taking me. And I remember always, like, walking ahead of them, because I was always not embarrassed of them, but I was like, oh, I have a dad with me like everybody else, and I didn't want to
Yeah.
be seem like the outcast, walking with my mom, and then just trying to find direction, right? And 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 also finding that self-confidence, because my mom did what she could, but sometimes there's only those conversations that your dad can have with you
Yes.
to set you straight, that you need that advice, right? But I'll tell you what, Don, like, I always talk about, there's that thing from Batman with Bane. It's like, forged in the dark, man. It's like, born in the dark and forged from it. There's something saying about somebody that, overcomes adversity and knows what it's like to kind of be at the bottom and have nothing, and to rise up, man, because those are the ones that, when bad things happen, or things go wrong, you're resilient and you can respond to it, and you know how to overcome that adversity. So in some ways it really held me back, but in other ways it's what built me into the person I am today.
Right.
And I talk about it. Again, we'll talk about this book, but a lot of it is about fatherhood, and how Tambo. I won't spoil the whole thing, but how Tambo also brought me back to a relationship with my father.
Yeah, man. And everything that you go through in life, right? I'm a big proponent for everything happens for a reason, right? I don't know if you guys are religious or anyone else is like religious, but I am, and I feel that God's not going to put you in a situation that you cannot handle. Anytime you think like, oh my God, like it's like this is the worst, like this is the worst, like I'm hit rock bottom, like I'm not going to be able to go see the next day, yada yada, whatever excuse you tell yourself in your head, you're gonna get through it. There's
Yeah.
something to learn. And everything in the trials and tribulations you go through in life just makes you the person you are today. And look how far you've come, right? Because I'm sure as you were like a younger adult, or as a young kid, like that's all you wanted was a father figure. But like, look at you now, man. Like you're fucking killing it. You're running a team of 40 guys with handlers and men and women. I apologize, but your struggles make you who you are. Don't look down on that or be embarrassed of it. That's who makes you are. That's the most important part about life.
Yeah, and that's, and that's the leader I try to be, is share those struggles with others. And it's the ones that go in and puff their chest out and say they've done everything right. They're full of shit.
Right.
I've gotten better, and where I'm at, from making mistakes, and that's all part of the game, right? And that's what I want to show to other people, and also share my struggles, and maybe that'll help them out to try to avoid that, but also be that guide for them when they hit their struggles, that they have somebody that they can trust, and they can talk to. Because a big thing of leadership, Don, what I think a lot of leaders forget, is servitude leadership, right?
Right.
And servitude leadership is also making sure that the people that work for you have everything that they need to be successful, right? So
Right.
you're essentially sometimes working for them, right? And that's a big part of it. And a lot of times when I meet with officers and stuff, I'll ask the question, how am I doing? Right. And it throws them off, because they're like, oh, at your level, why are you asking me how I'm doing? But that's a
Right.
big part of it. And I'm not afraid to get any constructive criticism, because I'm still trying to grow every day, and be better. And the minute you stop is when you really, kind of stunt your growth.
100%, man. And I'm a big proponent as well of like everyone you meet, there's something you can learn from that person.
Yep. 100%, man.
All right, you guys, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to dive back into Tambo. Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Murphy Carter Law. This one I'm proud to announce. This is a great partnership with us. They are a phenomenal law firm. I've known Rick for a very long time. He's a fantastic guy. Heart of gold. He supports organizations like Project Fire Buddies, who give back to kids with terminal illness. This guy cares. He is a staunch advocate for first responders. He's just a blue collar guy. He really is. He was a union construction worker at one point, and now he's just a shark in the courtroom. And that's just a fact. You're not going to go wrong by going with Murphy Carter Law. I promise you that. They will fight for you like they fight for their own family, like they fight for their mother, like they fight for their father, their brother, or their sister. That's just who they are. And they advocate for you guys. I promise they will fight for you guys tooth and nail. That's what they're all about, to make you guys whole again, or to get you close to that as possible and by any means necessary. They've won major cases already. have some notes over here. They have $11.5 million truck accident case. They have a $9.5 million medical malpractice case and another $7.1 million delivery truck accident. They handle their business. If you're looking for a lawyer, if you've been in a situation like Carrie and I have, Murphy Carter Law, check them out. Go to murphycarterlaw.com. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Tell them that Beyond the Dispatch sent you. All right, you guys, so we're back from break. We're going to jump back into Tambo. So you thought you were out of the woods, dude, with 2 torn ACLs, but it turns out you weren't.
No, man, like after he got his recovery from that, I'm one that likes to give back. And I was doing some ambassador work for Project K9 Hero. We were doing a lot of events, and in May, we had a great time. The Philadelphia Phillies called and honored Tambo and I for their salute to service game in May. And ironically, it fell on Tambo's 11th birthday, so that was a cool experience. My son was there, and I was out on the field with all these great military heroes, which I didn't feel worthy being on the field with them, but it was a great honor to be out there. And they put us up on the jumbotron, wished Tambo a happy birthday. He got a great applause, and it was just a really nice event. So we were really cruising, doing a lot of ambassador work. And then July came, and it was just kind of a normal day. I got up, go to work, and I fed Tambo breakfast and headed out to work. And I talk about this a lot in the other interviews. And I got to work, and I just started feeling sick, man. I was having palpitations. I was feeling dizzy. I didn't feel right, and I never leave work early, Dom. And I said I got to go home.
Yeah.
I just feel off, right? And I left like 2.5 hours early, right? So get home, walking up to the house, and we talk about energy and stuff, and the energy just felt weird. Open the door, Tambo usually greets me. Wasn't there. I'm running through the house looking for him. I found him in the dining room. He was sprawled out on the floor. There was vomit. So first thing I did was I checked his gums. His gums were pale, which was indicative of blood loss. His stomach was distended a little bit. Tried to get him up on his feet. Really couldn't stand. So long story short, I rushed him over to the vet, which is about 25 minutes from the house. They took him back right away. Did an ultrasound. Came back and said that he had a mass rupture on his spleen, and he was in the process of bleeding out. So they said in order to possibly save him, they needed to give him a blood transfusion and remove the spleen. And they said that, by the way, the spleen is absolutely covered in masses, and we're pretty sure it's cancer.
Oh.
So at that point, they were saying, look, he may not even make it through the surgery. Do you want to go through with it? But I said absolutely, and I called Jason up from Project K9 here because they gave me the quote, and it was anywhere from they said it's going to be from $9,000 to $12,000 for the surgery. And all Jason says, Chris, we got your back 100%. He said, I'm not going to keep you on the phone. Do what you need to do, but we got you covered. So again, right there, Dom, that was a big relief. Taken off of it. So they got him prepped, and I talk about this moment a lot too. They said they were getting ready for surgery, and they said he's a little worked up. Do you want to come out? And you probably should come back and say your goodbyes to him, just in the event, because it's 50-50 whether he's going to make it or not. And I remember, walking through those double doors, and his back was turned to me, and we talk about energy, and he felt that I was there because instantly he swiveled his head back, and we locked eyes. And I talk about this a lot. This is such a stoic dog that's been through all these traumatic injuries. This was the first time, Dom, I saw fear in this dog's eyes, and and I could see it, and his eyes were telling me, Dad, I'm scared, and I don't want to die.
Yeah, man.
And it was really starting to hit me emotionally, but I caught myself because I'm like, man, for 7 years, this dog stood by me through everything. It's my time to be there for him now. So I got myself together, and I said, all right, Dad's here, buddy. You're going to get through this. And I could instantly start to see the calm come over his eyes, which is what he needed to be able to go back because his blood pressure was starting to tank. So I left, and they called me within an hour and said, "Hey, look, we got him opened up. His again, his spleen is covered in masses, and from what we can feel, we think there's masses on the liver as well. Are you sure you want to go through with the surgery?" And I didn't even have to think about it, Dom. I remember that look in his eyes, and I said, "Yeah." I said, "Absolutely. I know this dog. It's not his time."
Right.
And so they went through with the surgery, and it was a rough couple of days. They didn't know if he was going to make it through the surgery, but after 2 days, I mean, he was up and eating, and kind of defying the odds of even in his recovery. And so then about 3 days later, I got the biopsy result back, and they confirmed it was cancer. It was a cancer called hemangiosarcoma. So for people that aren't familiar with that, they call that cancer the silent killer in dogs. It's a terminal diagnosis. It's a very extremely aggressive cancer. And essentially, at that point, they gave him about 14 days to live from there. And so the next step was getting an appointment with oncology. So, I did my research, and I got an appointment at Blue Pearl Hospital in Malvern, Pennsylvania, which has a good oncology department. And I remember sitting down with the oncologist, and she said, "Look, we're going to take him back for an ultrasound, but if the if the masses are on the liver, as we suspect, then chemotherapy is not going to do anything, and you're going to run into the same issue of one of these blood masses rupturing now on the liver, and you're back to an emergency situation, and the dog's going to bleed out and die." So I didn't know right then and there if I was going to have to say my goodbyes to him right then and there. But they took him back, and miraculously what they thought was masses on the liver weren't, and he was eligible for chemotherapy. So we started it that day, man. I called Jay up again from Project K9 here. The chemotherapy sessions were about $700 a session, and again, he said, "No problem, we got your back." And that's when we started the chemo.
Dude, shout out Jason, man. Shout out Jason. That's fuck. And also shout out Tambo for being a fucking badass. He had 14 days to live. And this dog just doesn't quit, man.
No, and we went. So we did the chemo sessions. We had 5 intravenous chemo sessions. We did them every 2 weeks, and that's when I really started, like, documenting it more on Instagram. I'd always had it, kind of an account for him, but I didn't put a lot of content on there. But I decided that, man, this dog's been such a warrior, and I really want to peel the curtain about back a little bit and document the journey. So I started documenting our chemotherapy sessions, and I didn't want to make it, kind of all gloom and doom.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of give people hope in even the darkest of times. So what I started doing was themes for each chemo session, right? And the first one I kind of did uh, um, Ice Cube, but today was a good day. I put some sunglasses on him, and I played the song, and then the next one, I was a big wrestling fan growing up, so I did a whole John Cena theme, and I put us in Never Give Up t-shirts, and
Let's
I had the
go.
towel, which you can probably see it behind me
Yeah.
on the jersey, and I took pictures, and then I had Tambo coming out to John Cena's song out. I said thong.
Hey, the
uh,
thong song, bro.
uh,
Shout out
right.
Cisco, brother.
Yeah, right. Tambo coming out in a thong. I was
Let's
like,
go.
gotta love it.
Oh, I love it,
Oh
dude.
man, so he came out to the song, like, out the front door, and to the music playing, and then I did. So the weird thing was, man, after that, I really started relating this all to, like, Rocky, right?
Yeah.
Because Rocky was always the underdog, the one that they counted out and defied the odds and kept rising, and that was kind of like the theme of my own life through my career. And then the crazy part was is that we were going right outside of Philly too for the chemo sessions, and I'm like, man, this is. And then so the last theme that I did was kind of a Rocky theme. I got him a Rocky Balboa outfit, and he had
Hell yeah.
boxing gloves on, and then he came out the front door like he was going to the ring to There's No Easy Way Out. And we filmed that, and people really loved it. And what it started doing, Don, was inspiring other people that had cancer or were affected by it. Like,
Right.
somebody reached out and said, "Hey, my dad's going through stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and it's terminal, but he's going through chemo and he wanted to quit. But then he saw, Tambo and Tambo's fight and his will to live, and now he wants to keep fighting." Or one of the bigger touching ones is when a mother reaches out and said their child has cancer
Oh,
and they enjoy seeing, Tambo's post. They look forward to it and it gives them light in some of their darkest of times. So it really turned into something much bigger, and he just started inspiring a lot of other people. And then the goosebump moment is, we talked about the whole Rocky theme. I got an email from the Philadelphia Eagles, and they wanted to honor Tambo on Sunday Night Football, for their salute to service game. So I mean, man, how crazy! Now I'm going into the city of Philadelphia after this whole Rocky theme and everything like that, and so we were doing one of the things, and so one of the things I wanted to do before the game is I wanted to attack this cancer from all angles. So I was taking holistic approaches, and then I was going through taking him to rehab to keep his joints strong. And we were putting him in the hydrotherapy, the underwater treadmill, and we were playing Eye of the Tiger. It was kind of like a Rocky mantra training for his
hell
his
yeah.
big event in Philadelphia. So then came November 16th. We were Sunday Night Football against the Lions. We got into Philly. I was there with the Project K9 Hero team, so we had to do it, man. The first day we went to the Rocky Steps, man, in Philly,
Hell yeah.
and we ran the steps together, which was so fucking symbolic. And then
Dude.
you can see on my Instagram, I got pictures in front of the Rocky statue, and then the day of the game, first time out, first quarter, they brought us out on the field. They had us up on. They had pictures of Tambo up on at Lincoln Financial in the jumbotron before the game, which is fucking amazing, from a dog that nobody wanted and was this underdog, and now he's on this stadium jumbotron, right?
Right.
And they call us out there. They talk about his career, and I'm standing there, and then they start talking about his cancer diagnosis, and that when he was given just 2 weeks to live. And at that point, Tambo came to life. You can see it on the video. He started barking into the camera like, "I'm here, I'm alive." And dude, we got a fucking standing ovation from 70,000 people.
Hell yeah.
And one of the things they said at the end is, a Philadelphia fighter, true and true. And I love that ending to it. And for the Philly fans to give us a standing ovation and to come full circle from where we started was an amazing moment. It was like one of those moments you just don't want to end, right? And it
Right.
was just so fucking amazing.
Dude, that's sick. And if you guys know, and if you've ever been to Philly or have seen like Philly games, like they call the city of brotherly love, but those guys and fans, they don't play games. So the fact that you got a standing ovation, I think, is fucking huge in Philly, brother. Did you guys did
No, it,
go ahead? Or
it
did
was it was
go ahead?
No, it was amazing. And then, I had an old school Dawkins jersey on, and then I
Nice.
had I had a custom Tambo jersey on too, and it was just a cool moment. And then, we had one of the team members had the never give up towel in the picture. So, it was just an amazing moment, and like a really full circle moment from where we started, right? To
Yeah.
kind of broken underdog souls kind of staring at each other in a fucking kennel, to
Yeah.
now being honored in front of 70,000 people.
And he's
I mean,
giving
you really think about it, it's crazy.
yeah, and he's giving hope. What I was gonna ask was, did you guys beat the Lions? Because I'm a Bears fan, so I hope you guys beat the Lions.
They did beat the Lions. It was a
Hell
close
yeah.
game, but they did beat the Lions,
Hell
yes.
yeah. Hell yeah. Fuck the Lions, bro. Bear down, baby. But I want to touch back on what you were saying is, these people are reaching out to you and saying, my dad's watching, it's giving him that, that extra oomph he needs to keep fighting. I feel like a lot of people pass that over. It's like the will to live is fucking massive, and it does play a factor. And I mean, when was he diagnosed with cancer? How, like, what year was that?
So who are you talking about?
Tambo, when was he diagnosed with cancer?
Oh, in July.
in
in
July,
July. Yep, and now we're in January.
and he had 14 days to live. Look at that.
Yep,
Let's go,
yep.
man. Let's go.
Yeah. And I talk about it, man. Like people, I say hope is everything, right? Because some people say hope is this mythical thing, and but hope is everything. Because every time I even went to the oncologist, when we went for a treatment, she would try to give me another timeline or an expiration date. And I would tell her, I was like, no disrespect, but I don't believe in that because I believe in the mind, body, and spirit and the will to live
Yes.
is what keeps us going. That's how you defy the odds, is believing and having hope. And people can say that, oh well, it's stage 4 cancer. Hope is nothing. Hope is everything because you see it all the time. People that outlive these diagnoses, right, and have hope, and to give people something, a symbol of hope, and
Yes.
and something to fight for and to relate to. And where this really came full circle, Dom, is, we talked about my father and stuff. He was going through some health issues, didn't know what was wrong, and then just got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And this is a stoic man that I've had a kind of a broken relationship with, and trying to patch that up. And one of the first things he said to me when he's telling me, he's like, how's Tambo?"
Yeah.
And because he could relate to him, right?
Yeah.
And that led to me going out to see him, and then him interacting with my son, and kind of rebuilding that relationship. And I have Tambo to kind of thank for that. But
Right.
I mean, it was just kind of a full circle moment, even with my dad, right?
Yeah, man, that's
So
so cool. Cause like he's thinking like if this dog can make it, I can fucking make it. Right.
yeah,
And it's true. And like
yep,
it's true to be said about my shooting. If I'd had the will to live, I wouldn't be here. And I've interviewed other individuals where Project Fire Buddies, it's a big non for profit in Illinois. They're one of the biggest non for profits in I guess almost the world for firefighters. And what they do is they go to kids' houses with terminal illness. And this one guy was telling me the story about how his son had a fire buddy who was, they're like, hey, he's not going to make it. Come over. Well, every time he would come over, like he'd pep up and he would live another day and live another day and live. Hope is everything, man. It's everything.
yeah. And a lot of people say too that they'll say, my positivity, because I always am positive with Tambo, is my positivity when he starts to falter. It's my job to breathe life back into him, right? And that's me giving back to him. And if
Yes.
I didn't have the right attitude, and the best compliment I can always get is when I'm out with him somewhere, and people don't really know our story, but they come up to me and say, hey, I just wanted to tell you, I can see how much you two are bonded and how much you love your dog, right? And people tell me that all the time, and that's the best compliment that I can get. And I think that my belief in him, and positivity with him, is also what keeps him going. And that's the same with cancer. It's not just the person with the cancer having hope. It also takes the surrounding team and the supporters to have that hope with them, to make this work. And
Right.
it's truly a team effort, and that's when you really need the support of others in those situations.
Yeah, man. Like you said before, like he was there for you. Now it's time for you to be there for him. And I'm sure he still picks you up too when you're still feeling down.
100%. And it's something to say that this is an 11-year-old dog that the tactical bravado portion. I talk about it all the time because I see a lot of the young handlers. They're posting all the bite work, and the patrol work, and the tactical harnesses and all that. The tactical bravado days of Tambo are over. This is about life. This is about survival now. This is an 11-year-old dog with cancer, with arthritis, that continues to fight, that continues to get up every day, continues to choose life, and continues to choose happiness, right? And there's something to say about how dogs in general live their life, and we can learn so much from them. It's us as humans that complicate things, because
Yes.
and Tambo's taught me to live in the present more, to be
Yes.
to be more present with my family, to be more present with my friends, and to focus on the now. I mean, he's just happy to go to fucking Starbucks and get a pup cup, you know what I mean?
Right.
And get his breakfast in the morning. This is a dog that has a terminal cancer diagnosis. He doesn't give a fuck. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And it's us that we complicate things, right? And
Right.
so this is a story of grit, survival, so the days of the sexy photos are for him are done,
Right.
that leave that for the young guys. So
Yeah, man. You should make shirts be like Tambo.
yeah,
Hell yeah,
absolutely,
brother.
man.
Hell yeah, brother. So, any other stories you want to bring about Tambo, or you want to start diving into your book?
No, I mean, I think we kind of touched on it. I will say that we recently had a visit at the oncology. It was a big one where they did an ultrasound and more imaging. That was a couple weeks ago. And Tambo's now on an oral chemo pill, so he's on that indefinitely. We've transitioned to that, but they did the imaging, and I'm happy to say that the oncologist came out and she said, I can't believe it. There's still no signs of any new cancer.
Let's
So,
fucking go.
dude, he's continuing to beat the odds, to defy the odds of probability, and we're just getting started, man. We're in a year that he wasn't supposed to see. So
Right.
now, it's pedal to the metal, and to kind of parlay now into that book. I've been documenting everything on Instagram, but um, I decided to, I've written two books. I have a children's book that's completed. I'm just working on like illustration right now, and that book is going to be it's going to be called K9 Tambo, but it's for children that have ever felt small or didn't have hope or are going through a significant illness, and it's about Tambo inspiring those children to never give up and continue to fight in a way that they can understand. So my end goal with that is to get into children's hospitals, and I want to first couple hundred books I want to donate to kids with cancer and give them a stuffed Tambo German Shepherd, and kind of inspire them a little bit. But get that book out, and then I have Tambo's autobiography that I'm doing. A couple chapters away from finishing it, and it's not just a story about a dog. Again, it's a story about resiliency, about hope, about survival, and defying the odds, about fatherhood and in relationships being forged. And dude, it's really fucking an amazing story. And everyone's like saying, "How are you getting this book done so quick?" And I'm like, "Cause it's fucking real. It's
Yeah.
already been written." You know what I
Right.
mean? Like kind of like what you were talking about, bro, with like your shooting and stuff. Like the story's already happened.
Yes.
You know what's happened. So and it's been therapeutic for me to write about. So both those books will be out in 2026. I'm working on some publishing thing, and my end goal is to get this on the big screen.
Hell
So
yeah.
we'll
Mark
see.
Wahlberg, if you're out there, brother, and you're listening, hook up my boy Chris. Hook up our boy Tambo. We got things to do, brother. We got things to do.
Yep. So big things ahead. We got a live appearance in Nashville, Tennessee on January 29th. Project K9 Hero has their annual Performers for Paws event where they have country artists, come out and perform. And then there's Tambo will be making a live appearance. I'll be speaking there with Tambo, and then there'll be some other dogs that are in the program. There'll be auctions. It's just a great event that Project K9 Hero does every year. So if anybody's interested in attending or wants to, I know Jason may still be looking for some sponsors. They can certainly hit up Project K9 Hero for that for some more information.
Hell yeah, dude. That's you guys check it out. You're not gonna be disappointed. Hit up Jason. If you have the funds and you want to sponsor a good cause, that's it right there, man. You're buying people hope, right?
Yep.
You're
And
helping save more lives.
And what I say is, when people donate money, if they want to know that sometimes you donate to big causes and you want to make sure your money is going to, an organization where it's actually being spent the right way. I'm Tambo and I are proof of that concept.
Right.
We tallied up recently over how much with all the surgeries, and they've now I think funded over 30,000 toward Tambo's care.
Let's
So
go.
and that's just Tambo. They've done that with countless other dogs as well, and they're giving these heroes a second chance in life. And I can't sometimes refer to them as our silent heroes, our forgotten heroes. And we need to make sure even when they retire, these are dogs that served our countries and community and deserve a chance for a good life in retirement.
Absolutely, brother. And when those books release, you gotta let me know. So I gotta make a purchase. I gotta buy a book for
Yeah,
my kid, and then I want to read your book, man, because it sounds like it's gonna be a really good one, dude.
it's gonna it's gonna be amazing, and it has all the feels, and of it's got happiness, it's got sadness, it's got humor, and it really kind of touches all the feels, and I was telling someone else the other day, in a world right now where so much bullshit's going on and
Right.
negativity, like this is a good story, and I want to bring more positivity into the world, even if it's on a small platform, just to kind of do my part.
Yeah, man, and because you can go on social media and you can look at OnlyFans models, you can look at all this bullshit that's going on politically around the world, or you can fucking do something that actually is going to put positive energy back into your life. And someone like Tambo or someone like you or anyone who's been through hardship and has overcome it, like these are the role models that we need to be looking up to, not fucking Kim Kardashian and Ray J and their sex tape. Like, what are we doing here?
And you're right. And I feel like our younger generation, they focus on all the wrong things. And being an older dad, my biggest fear is not being there for my son, because I know what it's like to grow up without a father. And I'm always going to be there for him, but I try to make sure I'm staying healthy. But I also want to leave a legacy for him that he can be proud of me, and someone he can look up to, and model his life after, and be proud of, and I'm continuing to strive to be a better man every day, not only for myself but more for him, and that's everything to me.
The most important thing, man. That's the most important thing in life. But I'll tell you right now, from everything that we've just talked about on this podcast episode, you fucking done it, man. You,
I
you,
appreciate it,
you,
bro.
you and Tambo are making a difference in this world, and it's that shining light in that dark room that people need to see. It really is, man. Is there any other stories or anything else you want to cover before I flip it to you and we take off?
Well, a couple other things I got in the work. Tambo's going to have his own. He's going to have his own coffee coming out
Let's
this year.
go.
So
That's
I'm
right. You
work
did send me that.
Yeah, I'm working with a company on that. That'll be coming out. And then I always try to give a shout out to any podcast I do, to Tito's Vodka. The backstory on that. I was at a conference about 4 years ago, and I was in San Antonio, and we were at an event sponsored by Tito's, and my coworker and I were sitting at a table, and these two gentlemen came and sat down, and they're like, "Can we sit here?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And then everybody's coming up and getting pictures. And I'm like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And they're like, "Do you know him?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Do you know who it is?" And I'm like, "I don't know who the fuck it is." And they're
Right.
like, "It's Tito." So, long story short, got talking to Tito. He's a big dog lover. We hung out all night and exchanged numbers. So once Tambo had his cancer diagnosis, I texted Tito, and within an hour, his philanthropy team contacted me, and made two big generous donations to Project K9 Heroes. So I always try to shout them out, because I really appreciated. He didn't have to do that, and so I always try to give gratitude to them when I can.
Hell yeah, man. Shout out Tito's. I love to hear that kind of stuff. Like there's still hope for humanity, man. There's still there's still fucking hope, brother.
There's so many good people out there, and just a shout out to everyone that's been kind to me on Instagram, and the sending people that don't know me that well, that hear Timbo's story and send packages and care packages for him. And I mean, it got to the point, bro, where the Amazon guy was coming, and Timbo's like, "That's for me, that's for me." So
You
and
better
then when it wasn't, he was disappointed. But like, and just people's support and kind words just go a long way. And I think we need to do more of that as well, because
right.
sometimes you may not have money to do something, but just offering that verbal support, or
Right.
just saying, "Hey, hang in there," or "I'm praying for you," can go a long way. And you don't know how people are feeling that day and what that may mean to them. So just thanks to everybody that has really supported him, and it's growing. I never thought he would have close to 50,000 followers right now, and it's just been kind of an amazing ride. And there's still a lot of amazing people out there that are just doing kind things.
Hell yeah, brother. And I mean, there's something to be said about that. And I'm sure in your career field and in a lot of people's career field, like everyone's always so quick to tell you what you did wrong, right?
Yep.
There's not too many people out there or too many instances of people being like, you know what, man, like you're doing good things. Like we don't get that enough. Do fucking kind things for people. Say that kind thing to somebody because you don't know what that person's going through. And if you feel like they did something good, fucking let them know, man, because that could be like the difference between a good day and a bad day for them. Or, I mean, even like more of a serious situation of life or death. Like if someone's struggling to the point of like they want to take their own life and you stepped up and be like, hey, man, like I don't say this enough, but you're a fucking badass. Like I'm proud of you.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I try to do as a leader is really, I don't want it to be where, we're going down the hallway and it's like, hey sir, hi sir. Like I want to get to know them a little bit. And I tell all the other leaders that when you can develop that trust and that rapport with them, if they're going through something hard like a divorce, or they're thinking about something, taking their own life or something, they have that trust in you that they can confide in you to talk to you, right? And having that outlook, and being comfortable to come and let you know what's going on, or what they're going through. And but that's all about extending that olive branch, and showing humility to them, and
Right.
building that trust, and knowing that they can trust in you as a leader. And that's what leadership is all about, man.
Brother, you're not fucking lying, man. And you've probably experienced bad leaders just like I have, and you've
Oh yeah.
experienced good leaders, and you've had a fantastic role model, man. Like, bravo. Like, I'm sorry for your loss, and that's fucking heartbreaking because the relationship you had with that man that he helped develop your career and shape that career. Like, because if you didn't have him, do you think your career would have went the same way?
No, no, and I became close with him outside of work, and he helped me in a lot of other personal ways, and I still keep in contact with his family. And one of the things I promised her is that I would keep his legacy alive. And he had a ironic thing, Dom, is he had a young daughter late in life too. And so I tried to, I would take stuff like K9 cards over to her, then we would have them made, and just update stories of how things he did for me, and little things that I'm doing for other people that he did for me, and giving them chances. And that keeps his legacy alive, because
Yeah.
a lot of times, right, like someone, you have this great leader and they pass away, and they do the service and all that stuff, and then they're just kind of forgotten. And then
Yeah.
sometimes these families don't hear from them, and they feel like, well, okay, that service was nice, but what about the after effects, right? When everything wears off and you're now sitting there alone. So one of the things that I've tried to do is continue to stay in contact with his family, and let them know the things that I'm doing, right? Every promotion that I get, I'll call his wife up, and I'll thank her and say, this is for Bernie, because without him I wouldn't be getting these promotions, and letting them know my success. And we had a canine memorial built at our facility, and we dedicated it to him. And I
Hell
had
yeah.
his family come out, and I did a tribute to him, and the leader that he was. And it just shows them that he's not forgotten.
Right.
You know.
And everything he's done for this country is not forgotten, and that's huge, man.
Yes.
Thank God for people like you. Thank God for people like Bernie, brother. We could, law enforcement wouldn't be the same without you guys. We really wouldn't. But brother, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, dude. It's been fucking awesome. Your story, his story, Tambo's story, inspirational. Where can people find you?
Right now, mostly on Instagram. I did try to create a TikTok, but I mean, I haven't figured that shit out yet. I think I
Good
have
point.
like 4 posts on there or something, but I don't know if I'll do any more with that. But mostly on Instagram right now, Dom. And that's lowercase k, the number 9 _ Tambo, TAMBO. You can find me on there. Eventually, I'm going to be doing some other things. I'm going to have Tamba's own website with more stuff on there. And so a lot of works in progress there. But right now, that's the main source. And then, of course, if people want to get involved with supporting the working dogs in our country, again, Project K9 here, they're on all social media platforms under that name, and then projectk9here.org on their website.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning into another episode of Beyond the Dispatch. We appreciate Chris coming in. We appreciate my sister Rachel for stepping up and taking care of the producer and co-host role. But man, inspirational, really is. You guys check them out. Check them out on Instagram. Check out Jason if you guys want to see that or go attend the event that you guys have going on. Yeah, in Tennessee, in Nashville, correct?
Yeah, it'll be at the Nashville Palace.
Hell yeah, brother. But again, hit that like, subscribe button. We appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of Beyond the Dispatch.